All right, I felt called to do a reading, so that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna start off cleansing. I got 3 decks here, and we're just gonna see what messages Spirit has for us. What I kept getting was that this is involving intentional manifestations, and my intention, of course, is to have just a clear channel from Spirit about what any of my spirit guides or your spirit guides or just anybody that wants to come through, what they have to say about what we've been manifesting, because manifestation is a collective conscious effort always, and we're all in this together. And I think that when you view manifestation from that viewpoint, it becomes a lot just easier. Like you feel more like flow and ease as far as the path towards, manifesting what you want. I found from personal experience, if I'm trying to manifest from a viewpoint of like, I want what I want and I want it now, that's my Aries moon coming out. Sometimes the intention behind it can become kind of convoluted, but simultaneously, the things that we envision and the things that we want for ourselves are directly tied to what the collective heart desires. Like you don't fantasize for no reason. You don't envision what you want for no reason. Like everything has a very specific purpose. It tells you the truth about yourself, tells you the truth about your heart's desires, and at the end of the day, all our hearts beat the same. You know what I mean? So I'm going to use the cards as a tool, but I'm going to use my channel as the main thing. Clearly it's coming through. So I'm going to start with an archetype, just to kind of like get the vibe going of what's coming through right now. And we have Thanatos, which is death. And as us spiritual girlies and they thems, anybody is welcome here, but we know that death is very important. And so we learn to honor death instead of fearing it. And it's okay if you fear death. But at a certain point, you have no choice but to honor that process of things must fall away so that new can come in. So that's the message of today, is to honor death and to look at this card, Miss Thanatos, and say, welcome. You are here to help me, not to hinder me, So first message coming through is something needs to fall away, something needs to die in order for something new to come through. King of Swords. King of Swords is a lot about thought and intellect. He's very analytical and he's also very fair. And some people, the shadow side of the King of Swords is that he's too logical. And as someone who has struggled with my relationship with logic in my spiritual journey, I used to roll my eyes every time the King of Swords would come out. But I think it's been a very personal journey for me to reach King of Swords status, to where I'm witnessing my thoughts and having the conviction to use that sword to like cut off what doesn't need to be there anymore, what needs to die away, So King of Swords is a bit personally symbolic to me about if you want your manifestations to come through, it's time to really be not harsh, but and not forceful, but sure about yourself and your ability to navigate the mental world with that sword. You have a sword in your hand and you can use it for whatever you want to use it for, and it's kind of its own journey within itself to learn how to cut what doesn't need to be there. So maybe we're reaching a thresholds. Oh my god. And we have the Queen of Swords. So look at that. Wow. I mean, it couldn't be more clear, you know? And that's what the suit of swords is really about, is mental clarity, which I know can be a struggle in a time of media consumption where we're tricked into like dependency on media consumption. That's something I've dealt with a lot. But having the Queen and the King of Swords here, clearly what's being highlighted is that in order to bring in what you want to bring in, you got to have conviction over your thoughts and over your mental self, which can be hard. You know, we live in a day and age where mental illness is pretty rampant. As someone who has dealt with mental illness, love in, love out, if you heard that siren. But it's so important. It's so important to learn how to discern your own thoughts and how to have conviction over your mind and what you allow in it and what you don't. So it's like, this is stressing that, you know, you are the one with control. You are the one with power over your mind. And I use the term control lightly because anytime you try to control, things get convoluted. But you're allowed to have conviction over your thoughts and your behaviors, and there is no limitation to that. There's no limitation to how much conviction you're allowed to have over your own mental state. And there are certain forces that don't want you to believe in your own mental power. There are certain forces that don't want you to leave that box. There are certain forces that want to diagnose you and medicate you and tell you what's right and what's wrong. But at the end of the day, and you'll learn this time and time again in this journey, is that you're the one who decides. You're the one with that sword. And even if you feel like a page and not a king or a queen yet, you know, you're allowed to have that. You're allowed. You are allowed to have conviction. So that is your own personal journey about really asking yourself, what stands in the way of me having conviction over my thoughts and what I feed myself and what I feed my reality. You know, what stands in the way of that relationship between me and what I'm seeing in my reality? Because, you know, the brain has so much untapped power, and they like it that way. And when I say they, I mean the man. You know who I'm talking about. They want you to think that because your emotions are unstable, you have to medicate yourself. They want you to believe that because you can't hold a normal job or you have a tough relationship with money, that you are incompetent and you have to medicate yourself. You have to do all these things. You have to pay a bunch of money to pharmaceutical companies to put yourself right back in that box and you know, stay in your place and play your role. But and they guilt you. It's like this force like guilts you, makes you think that you're a bad person for not like believing what they want you to believe. You're not small. I'll tell you that right now. You're not small, and you're not broken, and you're not incompetent, and you're not weak. I will tell you that right now. You are powerful. You are powerful. Your brain has limitless power. And in order to really tap into that, you have to allow certain attachments and certain things to fall away. And if you maintain a relationship with spirit, like a personal relationship, which is why I think prayer is so important, regardless of your spiritual beliefs, talking to a higher power, talking to your higher self, which is essentially what it is. It's yourself. It's just higher, is so important because, you know, your higher self will help you. You don't have to figure out how to do it by yourself. You can just pray and say, hey, I really want to end these attachments. And then you surrender. It's not about doing. It's about allowing. And that is how you gain conviction over your mind. It's not about gaining power. You know, that's the patriarchal, distorted masculine ideal that you have to keep going in order to gain. But in reality, in this state of the world, the truth is that the more you surrender and the more that you allow, the more space spirit and your higher self has to help you have conviction over your own mind and your own thoughts. And the more space is created. You know, you're not being bombarded by all these heavy energies. You're creating space by allowing death. And that's easier said than done. How I spot death, spiritual death, ego death, mental death, whatever form of death, is the feeling of falling. It's kind of like falling into a hole a little bit, and then you feel grief, and you might want to grieve this part of you that just died. And at first, you know, the first couple times that I had ego death, it was like this huge thing, right? It was like this really big deal, and I would spend like weeks in like this mental hole of like depression of like, what am I doing? But after like time and time again, it just keeps happening. You kind of get the hang of it. You kind of realize a couple things. A, that it's happening for you, and that every time it happens, space opens. And then you ride the wave of death, you honor death, and it grants, it's a gift. It grants you things. That empty space is not a lack, but rather an opportunity to create. You know, death grants you a blank slate so that you can step into your role, which is the creator. You can step in one step higher, kind of like a ladder, to your higher self, which is the role of the creator. And so death is so important in that process of climbing the ladder. It really deserves to be honored and respected. And we have the Eight of Pentacles. And the Eight of Pentacles is like consistent effort, which is what I was just talking about. The stairway. Some people might want to call it a ladder. Some people might want to call it a stairway. I kind of view it in my mind as, you know, one step at a time. I'll take a step and then I'll stay on that step for however long I feel like I need to be there. And then, you know, it's up to spirit to decide whether I'm ready to take the next step. And then sometimes I'll reach the top of the staircase and there's a doorway and it's a portal. And then I'll step through that and then I'll fall. And that's the Fool. And then it restarts. You see what I mean? But the Eight of Pentacles is stressing that this is not, you know, I'm a Gemini with an Aries moon, so I'm very like, let's go. But I've had issues with allowing the process to be a process and not a magic wand, you know. I like to be a magician. I like to be a sorceress. I like to believe that I can just wave a magic wand and the process will be done with. But of course, the most gifts that you find is in the process, and Pentacles stress material. So I think we obviously, in a blown up patriarchal society, the way that we deal with material is too fast, and it's too go. And everybody knows that. It burns everybody out. We see all the ways in which it doesn't work. And not just that, we see the ways in which it harms us. The Eight of Pentacles stresses, you know, when you're dealing with material things or anything, it's a consistent effort. You're gonna make mistakes and it's gonna be slow. And, you know, that is my qualm with a lot of the expectation that I feel is put on me just by, no one in particular, just by the man, you know, that wants me, okay, well, you got to get a job and get money. I'm like, well, I don't really agree with the pacing of it. I don't agree with the pacing. I'm somebody that needs time to take a step back and look at what I'm doing. You know what I mean? But honoring the process in honing a skill. Honing a skill. The skill being what we're talking about here. Let's get back to the theme of this reading. It isn't materials. It is having conviction over your intellect, your intellectual self, and the process of what that really is. It's a path that I've walked and I've learned a lot about. I'm a very mental person. And combining spiritual beliefs with, intense mental action. I'm a very mentally active person. I'm a Gemini with a Gemini Mercury. Give me a break. Give me a break. But it's always going to be a process. And it's just as, it's like a mirror of material. It's like you're still walking a path where you're going to make mistakes. You're still walking a path where you're going to have to learn lessons. You're still walking a path where you're going to mess up. And I've just been very dedicated to like altering my brain chemistry, not so that I'm not mentally ill anymore, but so that I can create, anything that I want to create at any time. I just feel like that is what I'm meant for, is to really tap into like this really profound mental power. But that has been a process. It's a skill. It's a skill that you cannot teach yourself. It is a skill that your higher self teaches you. It is a skill that something above you is your mentor always. And you have to be willing to be the student always. You can't play God as a human being. You can't play God. And I've tried. You can't fly. I mean, you can fly too close to the sun, but you're going to learn your lesson over and over again. The reality is that when you're honing a skill, you have to be willing to be a student at any time. Your goal is, of course, to be the teacher, the mentor, the one with the conviction, but that is always going to be a consistent skill, like learning a skill. So you have to be willing to be the apprentice in order to allow necessary death. There's never going to be a point where you're, I don't have anything to learn. I've mastered it. You can celebrate your points of mastery, but right after you do that, you have to be willing to be a student. The most advanced teachers ever know one thing, and that is that it's their job to be curious. It's your job as a mentor to acknowledge the student within. That is your one role, because if you're teaching others, you want them to be curious, right? So that is something important that I've learned. I think that card is that's what this card is really telling me. That it's a skill, just like anything else. I have the Moon card, the Ace of Cups card. We got some emotions. We got some emotions coming in. The Moon card is a beautiful card. It's a beautiful card. And if you look at the Death card in the tarot, in the background, you can see the towers. And that's one of my favorite things about the Rider-Waite tarot, is that after death, what is there? You feel kind of empty, right? You feel empty and you feel kind of lost. And that serves such a specific purpose for you to follow your intuition. Because your intuition and your emotions, which is what the Moon card speaks to, is how spirit speaks to you. It's how your higher self speaks to you. It's how the path opens up to you. It's through your heart. It's through what you feel, even if it's murky, even if it's confusing, even if there's fears involved, especially if all those things are involved, especially if there's heaviness, especially if there's confusion. You're learning how to trust what your heart tells you. You're learning to trust this connection. You know what I mean? The heart chakra and the crown chakra. You're learning to trust this connection. And who teaches you how to trust that? Spirit. And there's two heart chakras. There's your regular one, there's your green one, and then there's your magenta one, the higher heart. And the higher heart, for me personally, has been such a marker of my personal relationship with my higher self. I will stress this over and over again. To have a personal relationship with your higher self is just a very smart thing to do in a day and age where guidance is limited. You know what I mean? When you're a child, you know, you look to your teachers to, this is a generalization. This is my personal experience. I'm projecting. This is the Aries moon projecting. But what was I saying? Sorry, I lost my train of thought. The moon card. You're listening to your emotions so that you can follow this path. See, you're this little lobster and you're in this pool of emotion. You just died and you're in this pool of emotion, and there's all this unknown, this wild unknown. And you have to leave the water to walk the land path, you know? And you don't know what this path has in store, but there's a light. There's a light amidst the blue. There's a light amidst the blue, and guess who that light is? It's you. It's you, and it's always going to be you. So you can follow a light, and you can view it as above you. You can call it God, you can call it Jesus, you can call it spirit guide, but at the end of the day, it's you. You're following your own guidance. You are your own teacher, you know? So that's the beauty of the moon card, is that it is uncertain. It's inherently uncertainty, but in that uncertainty is the only place where you can find that inner light. And that's the beauty of the moon card. I love the moon card so much. It's right after death. You realize over and over again the importance of your emotions in all dealings, even in honing a skill as tedious as conviction over your own thoughts. What is important when you're seeking that kind of mental power? What is important? That you honor your feelings. You honor your feelings. So I got the Ace of Cups here, and I love the Ace of Cups, because the Ace of Cups, each stream represents, there's 5, right? Your 5 different senses. I was going to be like, there should be 6, but that's for you. The 6 is the hand of the divine handing you these senses. It is a gift to feel. And it doesn't always seem that way, but it truly is a gift to feel. Because if we didn't feel, then we would never learn. We would never learn about this beautiful process of death, of falling away. We would never be able to discern between what helps us and what doesn't. So the Ace of Cups talks a lot about self-love. And from a really spiritual standpoint, your 5 senses are just, you know, that is how you experience living. And to not honor that would to completely betray yourself. And so in any process of learning, it will always come back around to the self. And how do you experience yourself? You don't experience yourself by thinking. That's not you. That's not you. That's what you want to have conviction over. That's what your goal is. But what is you? How do you experience yourself? You experience yourself through what you see, through what you smell, through what you taste, through what you hear, through what you feel. You experience yourself, your life, which are one and the same, by feeling. So it's so important, even if it's all mental, your mental state is not something that is separate from your heart. And that is the spiritual journey, right? It's the continual return to here. So even if you're trying to have conviction over what's here, at every return, you're going to have to let something go. At every return, a part of this is going to have to go away and leave space for feeling, for experiencing. You see what I mean? And it's just that figure 8. It's just that figure 8 of, oh, I've spent way too much time dealing with this chunk. It's time for it to fall away, and now I feel kind of empty, and I don't know what to do with this space. But wait, I'm a human, and I have a heart. And ever since I came into this body, and I've experienced life, whether it's been traumatic and tumultuous, or, You know, whatever my life has been, I've felt things. I've felt things, and those things tell me the truth. Those things are my higher self speaking the truth to me when this doesn't speak the truth to me. It just tells me a lot of muck, and I'm tired of it, and I want to have conviction over it. But there is something that already exists that has conviction over it. And that thing is spirit. And that thing is your higher self. And how do I communicate with that force? The force that already knows that you are not this. You get in tune with this. And there are millions, infinite ways to do that, because everybody has different wishes, different heart desires, but they all kind of connect each other. It's like this web. And it's a really beautiful thing because it all comes from the same place, but it's unique for each person. And that is one of my favorite discoveries, is that like our hearts beat the same, but if let's say every single person on planet Earth, 8 billion people, 8 billion people, were to be completely in tune with their own unique self-expression, you would not see two people who were exactly alike, just like snowflakes. And isn't that fucking miraculous? Like, miracles don't exist. You're kidding, right? Like, life is a miracle. Like, the fact that that we can all belong to the same source, but be so unique. And everybody is like beautiful. Like, this genuine self-expression is never not beautiful. You know what I mean? If it comes from here, it's beautiful and it's real. And no two people are exactly alike. They might have similarities, but no two people are exactly alike. And that's how, if you want to put a name and a humanity to source, God, that's why God loves humanity. That's why that source loves humanity, is because it's so miraculous. Like, it's so real, you know what I mean? And so I'm passionate about, you gotta feel your feelings. You gotta feel your feelings. And, I got an Aries moon. So when I feel something, it's like, I don't care how intense it is. I don't have the option of holding it in. I don't have the option of like, I'll deal with this later. Like, I don't have the option personally. So in my journey, it's been so important to like honor what I feel when I feel it, because it's telling me the truth. It's telling me the truth. And I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen to what my emotions are telling me, because I set an intention, and that was to tap into mental power. Like a very profound mental power. And ever since then, I have been guided and led so beautifully and powerfully by spirit, by my higher self. And it's just been such a beautiful process that always takes you back here. So in the end, when I've reached this certain checkpoint of mental mastery, what am I taken right back to? The return. I feel like a newbie all over again. I feel curious. I feel unsure. I feel uncertain. But I also feel very proud. And it's been worth everything, And I'm a student again. And I'm always going to be a student. And it's exciting to be a student. Your inner student reveals herself through curiosity, and your inner teacher reveals herself through love. And curiosity and love do a little dance together, and the more space you create, like all these little clouds in the background, the more space there is for truth. This blue sky with the clouds, the white fluffy clouds. You have space for truth. You have space, and your mind begins to feel like a clear sky. And no matter how much conviction you have over your mind, fall and winter are going to come. And you're going to get stormy storm clouds. And you're going to have all different types of weather. And no sword is going to stop that. No sword is going to stop that. And any part of you that wants to have control over the seasons, the natural seasons of your life, is destined to die off, at a certain point, you can't be God. You can't play God. And I've learned that as an air sign. I had a girl say to me, she was an Aquarius, and she said, air signs tend to have God complexes. And I was like, me? No. And then I was like, I learned my lesson. I learned my lesson. But I don't want to have control. And if you think you want to have control, no, you don't. You don't. You can think that you want to have control, but when you have control, that's what happens. The spirit gives you control. You're like, okay, you want control? And then you're like, oh shit, I do not have the tools. I will never have the tools unless I'm like literally dead in the astral realm. I don't enjoy being a god in my own life. I enjoy my own humanity. I enjoy humanity. I enjoy my humanity. I enjoy feeling and experiencing. Let's go back to that. I'm gonna pull a little Zoltar Speaks fortune card. I'll see if something wants to come up. All right, here you go. If you subdue yourself and return to the practice of what is right, if one day you achieve self-control and return to what is right, the world will acknowledge you as a person at his best. Being the best must come from you yourself. One cannot acquire it from others. Look at nothing which is contrary to what is right. Listen to nothing contrary to what is right. Speak nothing contrary to what is right, and do nothing contrary to what is right. You will then be a person at his best. So I'm going to interpret that as the staircase. What is right? And in the process of following what is right, it's kind of like you have to let go of the belief that there is a wrong. You know what I mean? Your heart is going to move forward at whatever pace it wants to. And if you are listening to your heart instead of just running up that staircase, and you're really listening and paying attention to the pace of your heart and when your heart wants to take a next step, then in my opinion and from my personal experience, there is no wrong. Of course, you're going to make mistakes along that path of following your heart, but that doesn't mean that it's wrong. Mistakes can be right, and most of the time they are, because they teach you things. I've dealt with perfectionist issues a lot, which in a spiritual journey is so arbitrary because it's like perfection. I mean, in any case is just neither here nor there. It's just not something that exists. It's something that inherently is in nature, and we are a part of nature, but it's not something you can achieve. It's something that you can only surrender to. So follow what's right. Your heart is the only thing that will tell you what's right, not your mind. Not your mind. It doesn't happen with words. It doesn't. Communication from spirit seldom happens here, unless your channel is open. That's a completely different thing. But your heart is what tells you what's right, always. And that's like cliche, but it's easy to forget that when you set an intention to have mental power and to manifest. And that's just what I've learned. So I hope you got something from this and I wasn't too rambly. But thanks for watching and listening. Love you.